Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and today we have the amazing and awesome David Ussery. David, how are you?
Hey, Andy, what's going on? Happy holidays.
Yeah, it's that time of year. I wasn't sure if we were going to make it in 2020 to the holidays, but we did. And so we've got, 9 days left in the year. So, woohoo.
Oh, man. I mean, every day blends together for me before the pandemic. So, nothing's really changed in that aspects. Halloween came, and then it's Thanksgiving, and then okay, now it's the end of the year. Okay,
yeah, well. it's kind of the year that never ended, but also flew by at the same time, where you're just your mind is just messed with the entire time. So
exactly.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So David, why don't you just let us know what you have exciting going on and what you got going on in the world that you want to make sure people know about you.
Well, yeah, I guess the biggest thing for me is music is everything for me. Music is life. It's I don't know. I'm really connected with music in a huge way. And I've been in a lot of music projects, a lot of bands and things like that. And one of the things back in the day when you were an artist, you just played a lot of shows, and that's how you hopefully got famous. But I want to actually share music more. I want to get out there and help people that maybe they're a bedroom producer, or maybe they're a band that's just been playing locally and nobody else knows about them. And I want to be able to help them share their music. So I started an A&R company, which is just like a development company for any genre, beat makers, house producers, bands, guitar teachers, painters, whatever it is, people who have art and want to share it with the world, that don't want to have to go through all the pain in the butt of social media and ads and posting content and all that kind of stuff. I love doing that stuff as well.
Right.
And that also gives me a place to be able to promote my own music and stuff like that. And I'm getting to learn. So I launched a new website. That's the new thing. goatrockpro.com. I'm taking on some new clients. Just some new ideas are coming in all the time. I wanted to do maybe a Christmas EP with all the artists that I'm representing.
Mm-hmm.
That came about 2 days ago. That idea came 2 days ago. So it's like, maybe next year. But
that's how my ideas, they always pop into my head, like as the ship is passing. I was like, yeah. Wait, why didn't I have that idea when I was ahead of it? But then, like you said, you tuck it away for next year, and you got a year to get ready now.
Andy, imagine this. Imagine having your number one fan. That person that buys all your albums. They're the ones that never shut up about you online. They're always supporting you and talking to their friends. They're buying your merch. They're, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine having that person talking to your fans as your representative, helping you book studio time, helping you promote your band. Who better than your number one fan, unless it's you?
So are you that number one fan?
I'm the number one fan. Awesome. I love music so much. I love so many different styles that I can feel your passion. Where are you coming from? And get attached to that and hear the music and go, oh man, I love it. Let's tell more people about it,
Well, and I love this idea of where you're taking it, because you actually, you hit one thing on the head about musicians kind of going through that same, going to gigs, trying to get ahead and wait to get discovered. And yet the world is so untapped right now as far as how you can reach everybody. And I think a lot of people had really good lessons in 2020 on how much being stuck in lockdown doesn't necessarily have to limit you. In fact, it can expand how much bigger you can get, because people are more open to things virtually, and people have had to hone their skills with getting online and promoting themselves in a different way. And one thing that I learned when I started speaking, I became aware very quickly that I had two things to learn. I had to learn how to hone my speaking skills to be a good motivational speaker and talk in the right way in front of an audience and deliver my message well and come up with the right message. But the other side of that was learning the business of speaking. and promoting and marketing myself. And typically when you're good in one area, you're not good in both, or you don't have time to do both. And so what you're doing allows someone to focus on the music and let you carry their message out to more people.
Yeah, and they have 100% control over what they can have 100% creative control,
Mm-hmm.
or they can have 50%. And I want this to be almost like 100% outsourced.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Sure.
mean, I'm good at some things, right?
Right.
But I may not be the best at everything. I can create a really cool website for you, but maybe you want something I can't do. But I know somebody that I work with in the community that can set you up.
Yeah.
So
And
I want
that's
to
really where that
I want to
power
be that
comes in.
bridge too. I want to be that bridge, and you hit it right on the head too. Most people are like, "Hey, I just want to play some music and get my message out." They don't know they're also starting a business,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and it doesn't work like it used to. And this is a perfect time. We're being forced into what we were going to be doing anyway, which is mostly online, mostly communicating with the technology that we have. And there's a lot of cool collaborative apps coming out for music now too, where you can in real time collaborate with other people all over the world.
That's
So
awesome.
it's a
And
perfect time.
yeah, so get with David, get your music out there. I can't wait to see this stuff. And I, whether it's this Christmas Eve or next, I look forward to seeing what you have going on out there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, for sure.
So David, I like to dig into all my guest souls and ask them, what's that awkward thing you've had to get over and learn how to own in order to get to where you are today? So what's that thing for you?
Um, well, it's a great question. I think 2020 was a great soul searching time for a lot of us. Um, I've crafted a pretty good bubble for myself. I don't watch the news. I don't partake in political speech or any of that kind of stuff. Hey, I'm totally neutral, and I have my own beliefs. But hey, you believe what you believe, and I believe whatever. You're still cool. It's all good. But one of the things I had to get confronted with is that I can't keep that bubble up
Mm,
all the time. I have to be in the know for my children, for my family, for my career and things like. I have to be confronted with
right.
the things that I don't want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And 2020 didn't have it had its fair share of confronting moments.
So your
Um,
bubble was popped or penetrated at least a little bit.
a few times, yes,
Yeah.
um, and um, and trying to deal with the idea that people, I kind of think the way I think is pretty simple and commonsensical. The
Mm-hmm.
way I view life seems pretty simple. And so to me, I make the mistake of thinking other people see life the way I do.
Sure.
And so when they don't, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you cross on a red light like
Yeah.
that? Like,
Well, I think that's exactly right, because the way we all think should make sense to us, right? But we
yeah,
all have come through the maze in a different route to get to the center, and we're all taking different paths, and eventually most of us the most of the people that I encounter, regardless of their beliefs, feel the same way about treating people with respect, loving one another, being kind. The generally good things about people are typically in the base sense of their heart are the same, and then how they get there and how they share those is where we get into these differences. But uh but I think that's interesting that you're saying that, like, because it does make sense to you the way you think, and then when someone else thinks differently, all of a sudden that's the quandary. It's like, well, how can you even think that? So was there a specific event or something where you knew, oh my gosh, I gotta open up this bubble a little bit, or was it a throat punch, or what happened?
no, it was shattered. It was just like the whole, because the pandemic, I kind of played it off at first. I was like, come on, it's just people are just getting hysterical. And then when it really just hit, it was almost like a 9/11 moment where it's like
Mm,
everything has changed forever now. Like even if things go back to normal, we'll still always talk about this time.
Right.
So it's like I had to really confront, and it's something since I've turned 40 that I've had to confront many times, is that, hey, maybe the beliefs that I had held before, that I held, based my life on, maybe there's new info. Maybe I need to reevaluate those things
Hmm.
and see if they still hold true for me. Some of them do, but not all of them don't. Not all of them do. So yeah, it crashed in on me and really forced me to go, okay, Black Lives Matter was a great thing. I had a preconceived notion about what that meant.
Hmm.
My wife had actually had some extensive training. She's a teacher, so she went through some training on it. And I was forced to listen to her point of view and go, huh, that's not at all what I thought it was. And I
Hmm.
felt kind of awkward in that manner, going, I had based my whole thinking on one way of thinking, and then, it's not the case.
Right. And I think what we run into sometimes is anything like that, like Black Lives Matter or other things that are political or world events, we hear different people's takes on what it does mean. And I'm a firm believer that whatever perceived truth we hear first is what we cling to the hardest. So if you hear something from a certain perspective or angle, the first way that you hear it is what's going to be cemented in your brain, and you're going to believe that. And then everything else is going to either reinforce that or prove it wrong. And you have to really try to be open minded in order to see it from a different perspective.
Especially if it's from somebody that you really care about or know or
Mhm.
trust. You've gotten good information from them in the past. It's like, well, this is, it's how things, like, I've gotten good information from the past. It seems like we're on the same page, so it makes sense, and you kind
Right.
of accept it sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I have this concept I talk about sometimes about ridiculous truths. And I love that you talked about turning 40 and having to kind of relook at some of the truths that you believed, because what I define as ridiculous truths are those things that we learned before we questioned them. For example, is there a Santa Claus? And if we grow up believing and being told there's a Santa Claus, at some point we get old enough. Sorry if there's any kids watching, that you learn that that's a little bit of a magical myth, right?
My
And
wife would be mad too.
yeah, so right, yeah, but at the same time, if someone told you that as an adult, that there was a man who traveled around the entire world within a minute and was at midnight everywhere all around the world, you would know not to believe it. But for some reason, you learn it at a time where you learn it from people you trust, you learn it at an age where you believe things, and then you never re-question it. And I've had things like that about different things in life that I never questioned. And especially when it comes to faith and values and virtues, that they're just cemented in you. And then at some point you say, wait, why do I believe that?
Yeah.
And when you start to dissect it, it doesn't necessarily mean it was wrong, but that maybe it's not a two-sided coin. Maybe it's like a ball of gold, and that currency isn't just one-sided anymore, two-sided.
Now, why was it important? What made me make that distinction? Try to
Yeah.
find that, follow the money, like I tell my kids.
Right.
If you
So,
want to know why something happened or why something didn't happen, just follow the money. Either somebody
mhm.
got paid or somebody didn't get paid. That's what. And my
Right.
kid's like,
Yeah.
what?
That's
Huh? Like, yep.
eye-opening, right? Well, and now to keep it focused on your awkwardness,
Yeah.
how was that in that moment where that band-aid was ripped off? Did you jump in all in with the okay, now I'm enlightened in a new way, or was there some time where you kind of had to ease into it and have continued awakenings, or how did
Uh,
that go for you?
Kicking and screaming. It was. I don't like. I actually should have gotten used to it by now, but I don't really like emotional shifts like that, and
Hmm.
it it really made me cling to my family, cling to my wife and my kids. Kind of like when I went through my divorce, like I don't want to miss any minutes with them because this, it was almost like this is it, you know,
Mm, yeah.
um, types of situation. I don't know what's going on, and it's because I like to keep myself somewhat uninformed on the propaganda. So
Hmm.
it's kind of self-imposed. But yeah, it was having my wife and my kids around was a savior. But I was in a dark place, and I just had to naturally push through it. Counseling was huge,
Mm-hmm.
um, and music, and building this business. This is what this kind of been building. I'm building out of this darkness, trying to get to this. That's,
Right.
like, and for a while I was like, do I really want to do this? Am I a CEO type person to, build a company to do that? Do I have the, am I too lazy? Like, what,
Right.
all these doubts going through my mind. And it's just like, was this one thing that was just constant. I got to get
Mm-hmm.
to that. But
Yeah.
most things have just been, I have to go through them organically. It's tough. It's, rough, but just being around a lot of people that support me.
Well, and you mentioned that idea that when you have that emotional shift, that there's that uncertainty that you don't like, and I think that's a key thing for people to really understand and be aware of, because we don't like feeling uncertain, right? That's just not a good feeling. We want to know that Santa's coming down the chimney. We want to know that what we've believed in, or what we've taught and agreed on our entire lives, that is a certain thing. So when something all of a sudden is exposed to other possibilities, it's very unsettling. So I understand what you're saying about just clinging to, okay, if these are uncertain, then I want to make sure that I'm close to my family, that I'm close to the wife and kids, and that I keep that as sacred as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I've done a lot of counseling, a lot of self-improvement seminars and things like that. And the one thing that I remember from a guy named Kyle Cease, which I'm sure you know as a comedian, he said that, whenever something happens that's kind of bad in your life,
Mm-hmm.
people always go, deep down, I knew something, it was going to be okay.
Right.
At some point, it would suck now, but deep down, I knew it was going to be okay. He's like, what if we lived there in
Mm.
the place where we know it's going to be okay? What
Yeah.
if we just lived there all the time? And one of his favorite phrases is, "I hope I screw this up." It's like, I don't want to make a mistake, but I'm totally cool if I do.
Right. Yeah, I think that's such an important place to stay, because then no matter what's going on, we can tell ourselves, well, this is temporary, right? Like, my life's not the way I want it right now, but that doesn't mean my life is this way forever. This
Yeah.
is not me for the rest of my life. It hasn't been me for, and I've learned to get a little better at that, whether it's how I feel about my body, how I feel, am I in shape? Am I bigger? Am I smaller? Whatever. It's like, this is me this year, right? You got the 2020 version of Andy right now, and the 2021 model hopefully will be improved upon, but sometimes the new models aren't that great for a year or two. So
Yeah.
so we'll see. We'll work the kinks out a little bit.
It's in beta.
Right? Yeah, exactly. One thing that you mentioned too was that idea that you're like uncertain about your new role leading a business, and that's something that I've run into a lot. I can't tell you how many times I've quit my job working for myself in the last couple of years, where I think, oh, this isn't happening. It's not moving forward the way I want to. And the one thing that I always come back to is I'll say to myself in that moment, well, at least I can say I did everything that I tried hard, and I did everything I could. And the next thought that immediately pops into my head is, but did you? But did you really do everything that you could? Because all of a sudden I start thinking about, well, I didn't follow up on this. I never called that person back. I never got David on my podcast. I was supposed to do that like a year and a half ago, right? And so then I can come back to the idea that, well, until I do those things, I haven't done everything that I could. And so it's too soon to
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah. It's the imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Like, oh yeah, I'm a YouTuber. Oh yeah, I own a production company. Yeah, but you don't do anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh yes, but you do a lot of stuff, and it's our brain always goes, oh yeah, but you didn't. Like,
Yeah.
when somebody goes, I really think you're an awesome guy. What's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing you hear in your head?
Oh yeah, you're like,
Yeah, but they don't really know.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't really know, because I know who I am, and I'm a piece of shit. So
Right. Well, and that's one thing, honestly, I was just thinking about this the other day with this kind of this cancel culture that's out there of just targeting things, where I I feel like we're doing our kids a disservice by teaching them that someone can never make a mistake or has to be perfect across the board, because I think that there are places where it's appropriate to, knock people off their pedestal a little bit when you find out that they're not in the right, that they don't have the right intentions. However, people are constantly growing and learning. And if someone, you know, maybe they changed their mindset over the last 15, 20 years and they've been evolving and growing as a person. And now all of a sudden we're saying, but did they ever say anything wrong? It's like, well, who
Yeah.
hasn't? And so then that puts us back in this imposter syndrome in our own heads of, but have I always been perfect? Have I always been good? And it's like, that's not really healthy because no one really is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So,
It's hard. I mean, a book I'll recommend, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I don't know
uh-huh.
about language on this podcast, but that I've read or listened to that book like 3 or 4 times,
That's
and
still on my list to read or listen. I do a lot of them audio, but I still need to do that one.
oh yeah, put it up on your first list, dude. It'll change your life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny as hell too. And it's a book about morality and morals and
Mm-hmm.
beliefs. It's
Okay.
not just about using the F word. And he's like, that's the only way I could get it on bestseller list. I
Right.
couldn't, I couldn't,
Yeah.
I couldn't title the book, how to have good beliefs. No
Right.
one would buy that. So
Yeah. There is something to be said for marketing something in the right way.
yeah,
I actually have this concept that I'm working on, and I'm actually working on a blog article. It's along those lines, but the idea is that if I want to succeed, I need to STFU. And so that's going to be the blog article, something along the lines of STFU, which, most people think of as shut the fuck up, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
for me, it's stop talking and follow up, because I'm paid to be a speaker. I love to speak. I podcast. I talk way too much. I run my mouth. Anytime I get an idea, I'm like, oh, we're going to do this. It's going to be exciting. I'm excited about it. And then I market the hell out of it before I ever did it. And then it's like, well, did you follow up and actually do the thing? So I've been really practicing shutting up and following up. It's like, just don't talk about it, and then once you've done it, put it out there, then market it. But it is that idea that you have to be a little bit sensational on getting people's attention somehow, whether it's dropping an F-bomb, whether it's and I'm not a fan of thinking that you need to do that every other word, because then it's not shocking anymore. You're just like, oh, that's that guy, right? Like,
yeah.
that's what you're going to expect. But when it's placed in the right time, and it's used in a way like the subtle art of not giving a fuck, you're like, the subtle art of just the idea of subtle art, and then having that word in the title, the contradiction right there just draws you in.
Right, right. Yeah, it was really, really eye opening for me, especially on the idea that you can't make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea that in social media everything's perfect. So you look at your life and go, man, they're standing in front of a Maserati and they're kissing a hot blonde and they're making
Right.
lots of money, and I'm sitting in my sofa slash bed, waiting for my wife to use the one bathroom, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
not, but they're just showing you the good stuff. They're
Right.
having the horrible moments too.
Well, and I always wonder, being in life coaching and motivational speaking, since I Google a lot of stuff related to that, my Facebook and my social media ads are constantly inundated with people advertising from certain walks of life. And I can't tell you how many ads I get of a person standing in front of a beach property talking about how great their life is. And if you follow me and pay me all this money, then you're gonna have this life too. And all I can think of is, how many times is that a timeshare, or a 1 week vacation they took, or they drove to the state park and took a picture in front of the beach, because it's all about this image. And yet the problem is we buy into that too much, where we think, oh, I need to get there. and
Oh
and
yeah,
you,
I got to show you something real quick. Hold on.
uh-huh, this is awesome.
So I'm driving down the street, driving home the other day, and I see cash
Oh, nice.
laying in the street,
Uh-huh.
just tons and tons.
Yeah, just a wad of cash, like
I'm
someone
like,
just
holy
robbed a bank.
crap! So it wasn't like a busy street. So I drove up and pulled over, and I'm like, and I'm pulling all these things, 20s and 10s, and just ton. Like oh my god! And
Right.
what? And then if you look closer on it, it says for motion picture use only.
Huh.
And I'm like, it's so real.
Is it like fake money that was from being like when they blow up a building and they have all this cash flying everywhere?
I don't know. I wish you could see it. It looks, if
Yeah,
you couldn't read it, it looks so real.
wow.
And it's like that's the kind of stuff they throw at like rapper, and music videos and stuff.
Sure.
And yeah.
Where they give all the extras some money and it's not for them to pocket. It's just, that's interesting. I've never seen that.
Yeah. So I took it home and I was like, hey kids, here's some money. Here's some money. And they're like, ah. So it's like, the people, like, it's not real. They pick and choose what they want to put on social media so that you'll be their friend, and you don't see the fails. You don't see the screw ups. That's why people who do show the fails and the vulnerability and the screw ups are so popular, because people want to see that stuff.
Because it's real. And what's really sad is those people who are only showing the successes, they're only doing that because of their own insecurity, because they're afraid to show the vulnerability, because they have that imposter syndrome and they have that fear of being found out. Even if they may be successful enough in their own right, but they're afraid that if they don't only show the success, that people will know that they're not really as successful in their own head.
Well, it's part of the gimmick, though. That's part of the industry. You show that you've made lots and lots of money doing really not much at all, like the audience you're programming it to.
Right.
I said, remember that guy? I made tiny classified ads.
Oh, right.
And sold $80,000 in just 10 minutes. Like, people want to be able to do that, but the problem is, and it's built into every sort of MLM or any sort of like alternate side hustle. Yeah. The legitimate side hustles. Well, it's built into that.
And my response has become, wow, I'm so happy for your success. If you're making that much, you probably really don't have that much time to spend on a $20 Facebook ad from me anyway. So good luck. Good job.
It's cool though. I'll give you a free webinar where I'll share my big secrets to you. And basically it's just a 30-minute ad with the same type of stuff you could pick up off the internet if you just Googled it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Because I've watched a couple of them.
Me too.
But
the key is give it away for free and then they'll buy from you.
Yeah. Well, David, I cannot believe that time has just flown by so much. So we are getting down to the last couple minutes here. But before we go, I got to ask you, what's a tip you might have for someone on how they can own their awkward?
You know what? I tell my kids this all the time, and it's not easy to do. Take 100% responsibility for what you did, not what you think happened, but for what actually happened, what you did or what other people. Just take responsibility. Once you do that, everything is open. You're not fighting it anymore. It's not admitting blame. It's just saying, yeah, I spilt the milk. Then it's gone. It's over. Counseling is huge. Finding supportive people, reaching out. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You would be surprised how many people are hurting too.
I love that. I think, and especially right now with everything people have going on in their own head, don't feel like you're alone. Even if you're alone, you're not really alone. Like we're all out here, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call, text, whatever. So,
TikTok's full of them.
Right. Thank you so much. Be sure to check out Goat Rock Productions, goatrockpro.com.
Yes,
did I get that right? All right. And let David Usry be your biggest fan and get you promoted. So thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure to have you here. I really appreciate all the things you've shared and your willingness to open up and own your awkward.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.